is the Lamb who was slain. Holy, holy is He. Sing a new song to Him who sits on heaven's mercy seat. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Clothed in rainbows of living color, flashes of lightning, rolls of thunder. Blessing and honor, strength and glory and power be to you, the Holy One's King. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Holy, holy, holy is the filled with wonder, awestruck wonder at the mention of your name. Jesus, your name is power, breath and living water, such a marvelous mystery. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come.
Good evening. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Of course, why would my camera decide to work? Hold on a second, guys. It's giving me a hard time, of course. This camera. What is up with this thing? Sometimes it just requires an unplug and a replug. Come on, camera. You can do it. Hey, there it is. The camera. It decided to start working. It's about time. All right, welcome. Thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks for all the super hearts. Thanks for all the shares, all the invites, the follows. Welcome, and thanks for joining. And welcome. What's going on, Fatal Freddy? What's up, Seeker of the Truth? What else we got in here? Tina's in the house. Angel's in the house. I see Melanie. I see Diane. I see some other person. Minister Lisa Hatterley. Who else we got? We got a bunch of people in here today. Wow. Thanks so much. Junebug, thanks for joining. Hey, how's it going? Sorry I'm a little late, but I was sitting here just kind of debating on whether to go on, and then, it was like, get that voice, go, get on. Are you Russian? I noticed you responded to someone Russian. No, but I do have a friend who I work with, who is speaking a little bit of not the best subtitle. Which one? What is that? Was that Nair? Not the best subtitle. Did I miss something? Alright. Maybe I don't. Do I not have something right? I don't know. Alright. Well, so there's other great people in here. 14 viewers live on Periscope. No one yet on YouNow. And, well, thank you for assisting me with that. No problem. I have a little translator program that's like a keyboard. So all I did was I asked the guy to speak in English, and then that's when he switched over. Captain Poland, thanks for joining. And Amber, thank you for being here. Royal Shame, thank you for joining. Wow, we got some stuff going on here. Hey, how's it going? There's people coming and joining. Welcome and thank you. So who am I? I am. There we go. Sorry. I was reading something real quick. I am Jason Wallace. Might be the spelling on the word Periscope. Oh, on my title, can you ask me a question? You just did, but sure, go ahead. Blessings, never ever quit. Welcome on the broadcast. The one you love, a child of God. Who is that? It looks like Jay. Is that Jay? You changed your handle? I was gonna try and use your other phone to hear him and translate, but it was too much to focus on. Yeah. It's pretty much. That person asked if they can ask a question, and then they left. What's up with that? This is Jace. I knew it was you, my man. That's your backup account. Yeah. I think we all need to make sure we get some, at least know who your people are, right? That's why we ask that you guys go to JesusDidIt.org and make sure you follow us through that way. So, the Periscope spelling, right, inside the title on Periscope is at Periscope Co. So at Periscope Co. is what it should be saying, unless I typed it wrong, which I hope not. Whoa, 183 viewers already. Wow, that's craziness. Periscopeco. Yep, Periscope Co. That's what you gotta do when you want to maintain and go up a tier in your VIP. You must do that. Hint. Pro tip. Put at Periscope Co. somewhere in your title. And do that, and the hashtag go live. See all those things that are in there? I do that for a reason, because that's what they're looking for. And when I tag it to Periscope Co., there's a good chance I don't know how much because this is a Christian-based broadcast, but no, it's not bad at all. Just figured I'd let you guys know. That way, if you ever wanted to use that, I would suggest it. If you're getting enough viewers where you feel you can be able to get the bronze VIP badge, I highly recommend that you do that. No problem, yeah, and put some spaces in between them. Spaces in between your hashtags. You want to do that because it will it actually, because if not, you land up with one big hashtag. So you gotta have the spaces in between your hashtags. So apparently we're gonna do a Periscope class today, but that's okay. I got no problem. All I care about is that you are spreading the word of God, the truth about Jesus Christ, and you're broadcasting. And that's what all we do is want to encourage the rest of you guys. Use the hashtag Jesus Did It in your broadcast. If you're speaking about, if you plan on thinking that you're going to speak about Jesus, why don't you use the hashtag Jesus Did It? It helps all the rest of us family members find you. Yep. Yeah. If you don't put spaces in between, it becomes one big hashtag. Which is fine if you use the same one big hashtag all the time, but if you don't, then nobody will be able to find you, unfortunately. That's why we use the Jesus Did It hashtag Jesus Did It in all of our broadcasts. Mine, Rick, Becky, Joshua, Wendy, who goes by Nana something now. But yeah. So, who am I? I am Jason Wallace. I'm a believer and follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a prayer warrior, an intercessor. I'm a Bible reader. I'm a devoted husband and father. Seems to keep them trolls away. Yeah, if you have a properly formatted title, sometimes they just don't come by you know. But today must be a very interesting title because I got a bunch of them. A bunch of viewers already. It's crazy. 245 viewers already. That's pretty cool on Periscope. That's really cool. Nobody over there, nobody over there, nobody over there. Alright, Periscope, it's all on you today. Oh, I gotta bring on our friends on live.me. Hold on. I keep forgetting about these guys because they never, ever want to. Yep, reading. Yes, there is gonna be about I delay some of the messages too because I try not to regurgitate messages right off the screen because you may get caught saying a bad word if you don't stop and think about what you're doing. Plus, there is a little bit of a delay. Especially if I'm reading them on here. There's really a delay. Alright, we'll chalk that up to yawn 1. What's going on? I'm so happy you're all here. Welcome and bless them. Dana Lee is in the house over on Facebook. Thanks so much for joining, Dana Lee. God bless you. And yeah, the realist has joined. Yeah, this phone's way behind. Way behind. All right, let me get live.me on and then we get started going on over here. Live.me. The title is Who We Are. Who we are. Gotta put a capital W for some reason. And R. No, I do not want to give my location. Thank you very much. No, thank you. I'll do without going live on my. Welcome. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome. Thank you for joining. There we go. Collect gifts to enter the leaderboard. I don't care about none of that. Leaderboard, nothing. All I care about is we're talking about Jesus, and that's what it is. So, alright, so did I go through this stuff already? I am Jason Wallace. I'm a believer and follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a prayer warrior, an intercessor, a Bible reader, a devoted husband and father. I am a child of God. Right here. Here we go. That's tea, but that's alright. Can't be drinking caffeine this late. we'll end up with issues. I won't be able to sleep. Tossing and turning. There we go. Alright. A prayer warrior, an intercessor, an undisclosed location exactly. In the middle of New York State somewhere. Near Buffalo-ish. It's about as far as I can go. Anyway. Periscope and life coach as well. We try to be. I try to help out people. You know. Yeah. Don't ever give your location out. I mean, some people do, but I recommend if you're a lady broadcaster, definitely do not give your location out. Because if you zoom right into that location on the Periscope, it takes you right to where you are, pretty close, within about 75 feet is what it is. So that pretty much right to your front door almost. So highly recommend that you don't do that. You don't share your location. Unless you're slick like Rick and you do, that's right, SIP alert. Unless you're slick like Rick and you go ahead and, what you call it? You have a little program in your phone that shifts your GPS to somewhere else, right? I don't even like to show your background, landmarks around, whatever. Yeah. Somebody might recognize it. That's all right. Best way is go into settings, go to privacy, in their location, and then just turn it off. Don't even show it, and it won't ever ask you. That's what I do. Unless I want to do a location. So like if I'm on a location. Love my broadcast. Thanks so much. We talk about some stuff, and we talk about some other stuff, then we read some stuff. Yeah. Hey, the eye roller. Listen. The gaming changing is joined. Zod is here, who loves my broadcast. Thank you so much. And somebody was like the eye roller. Hey, jelly bean brownies. Jelly bean brownies. That sounds very interesting. Seb's in the house. Welcome, Brian W199 on your first day on Periscope. You have stumbled into a Jesus Did It broadcast. Thank you so much for joining. All right, where were we? I am a child of God. I'm a new creation in Christ. I'm devoted to a husband and father, of course. Now I'm not seeing comments. Oh, I hate when it happens. You flipped your phone. Just tap the screen. You'll be good. Gummy bears sounds better. Hey now. That sounds very interesting. I am a new creation in Christ. I'm a citizen of heaven. I'm a member of Christ's body. I am a friend of Christ. I'm righteous and I'm holy. Shift GPS to the other side of a world. Rick actually does his down to the police station down there. So if somebody goes to try to find him, they'll go right to the police station. That's funny. It was so funny. But yeah, that's what we gotta do. But we can't do that with my iPhone, so. And when I do the broadcast with the producer, it does not give location, period. No location at all. Which is good. So you tend to get more people in the broadcast if you show your location, but that also could lead to problems, right? All right, so where was I? I'm a very proud member of the Jesus Did It family, guys, and this is why Jay over there had his backup account. But in case anything, you can't find our Periscope accounts. You don't know what's going on. Something's happening. Who knows? Maybe Periscope will just close down one day. And you want to try to find us. You can find us at JesusDidIt.org, right? The website, JesusDidIt.org. And right there is where we are. All the Jesus Did It official broadcasters. So there's Becky there, there's Wendy, there's me, there's Joshua, there's Pastor Rick. Down below is the people that we like to watch there. iPhone doesn't do it unless you jailbreak it. And then I don't know. Jailbroken iPhone is like asking for trouble. Too much sensitive and data there. There's some books for sale over there. There's some mugs, really cool mug painting that Becky did. Becky did that painting on that mug. The I Am stuff is really cool. I love the shirt. I wear the shirt everywhere I go. I shouldn't say everywhere I go, but sorry. I wear the shirt like out places, to Six Flags, to all over the place. And when I go, people are like, "Oh, I like your shirt," and that's what I tell them. Well, you can go get your own there at JesusDidIt.org. What's going on? Tall but short. Do I believe in magic? I wouldn't say I believe in magic, because magic's more of a, a lot of times is a dark art, right? So, do I believe in magic? I mean, anybody can make a card look like it's disappeared, as long as you try enough. So I don't know, believing or not. No. Do I believe in miracles? I believe that God still performs miracles today, absolutely. But we need to access that, right, through our faith, right? It's more of a miracle, exactly. We need to access that, right? So how do we access that? How do we get God? How do we ask God, get to God to even request for a miracle, right? Even though he knows what's going on, he wants to hear your heart. He wants to hear what's going on. And, that's what we need to do, is to pray, right? So we got to lift our voices up to our God, right? Lift our thoughts. Get into that there. Oh, yeah, listen, I've been up and down this road many, many, many times. People try to trick you with questions, which is fine, it's okay. And even if you're wrong making a response, as long as the end of the day, the end of that response is that it's all for Jesus, right? That is what is the most important thing. I really can't watch comments on that phone. Sip alert. There you go. Alright, so JesusDidIt.org. You can join us at the Facebook group, right? You can also, hey Beth Hoover, thanks so much for joining. How are you doing? On Facebook. Right there we got the affirmation sheet. Print that thing out. And you guys are over here going, what are you pointing at, man? Well, you know what? If my friends at Live.me would ever decide to let me broadcast using all the cool stuff, you'd be able to see stuff like this one when I flip the camera. I'm just going to show you guys real quick what you're missing out on. Is right there is the download, and that download allows you to be able to print it out, put it with your Bible, do all that cool stuff. Hey guys, Beth Hoover's in the house. Make sure you're following her. Make sure you're following Angel Love as well on Periscope. Make sure that you are following Tina there. Her name is Non-Fi-Dart. I'm gonna mess it up. Follow her. Definitely. Anybody who broadcasts, you want to follow them for sure. So let's get back into the broadcast here. Oh yeah, and if Periscope does disappear, or if Live.me, my account gets banned for some reason because I'm speaking truth, whatever it may be, if you need to reach out to me, right down there, the link tr.ee/Jason R. Wallace 7 will get you to the go to karaoke song. Yeah, we can go to a karaoke song. Absolutely. I'll go there right now. Just 1 second. Alright, just give me a second. We'll get you there. Hold on. I might even put that on the screen so you can actually see it real time. Anyway, diversion. Anyways, so Linktree is where we want to be. Jesus Did It website, webcam. Alright, Smealy. Let's go, Smealy. Where are you? Alright, Smule. You ready, Jelly Bean Brownies? You ready for this? I'm gonna actually flip this screen around so you can see. I'm gonna be really, really nice for Live.me because, you know, because they're not being so nice for me, so I'm gonna be nice to them. Let's see. Oh, we need to go. Oh, we need to go. We need to do some limbo here. It needs to go really, really, really low, and hopefully I don't hit the button to power off my computer, because that would kind of stink. There you go. Oh, hey, look at that. You guys can actually see, sort of. Sort of. But I don't want to hit the button. Do not want to hit the power button or any other funky buttons. There we are. Hey Lisa, thanks so much for joining on the Periscope, or on the broadcast. Yeah, so here we go. Wow, this is kind of trippy because I'm trying to read through the screen. There we go. So let's see, what song are we gonna do? Come on, guys. What do you think? Which one should we do? I don't know. Anybody? What's up, Oblivion? Thanks for joining. We're trying to pick a song to do. Good night. Kill him with kindness. There you go. May I screenshot? Sure. I don't care. Does not bother me one bit. The Happy Day song's a good song. I like that song. Resurrecting. I like this one. This was the one where I did the song with myself and myself. It was kind of interesting. But here we go. Let's do that. Alright, I'm gonna put this thing on mute, so here we go.
The head that once was crowned with thorns is crowned with glory now. The Savior knelt to wash our feet, now his feet we bow. The one who wore our sin and shame, now robed in majesty, the radiance of perfect love now shines for all to see. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. The fear that held us now gives way to him who is our peace. His final breath upon the cross is now alive in me. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. Your resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. The tomb where soldiers watched in vain was borrowed for 3 days. His body there would not remain. Our God has robbed the grave. Our God has robbed the grave. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. The resurrected King is resurrecting me.
Alright, I'm gonna try not to bang the microphone around too much so you guys don't get like the big thump 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 thump. I'm sorry. It is what it is, I'm sorry. Crazy. Do I love brunch? Absolutely. Who doesn't love brunch? It's like the best of both worlds. You get lunch and breakfast in the same shot. Why not? Sounds good to me. That's what I would do. Breakfast and lunch. Lunch for dinner, breakfast for dinner. Breakfast for dinner is good sometimes. Absolutely. What's going on? I actually got somebody over on D-Live. You don't like brunch? Well, what's going on, Saladas? So much for joining. I don't know why I'm not seeing you. Hold on. Wait a minute. Why can't I see you? What's going on with my stream over here? Oh, I know why. I don't have it over there on the chat so I can actually see it. Oops. You don't like brunch? Brunch is like good stuff. Now I can see your comments. I'm like, what is going on here? Yeah. So that was today's song. Good song. Yeah, man, I'm like with you. Not for too long of a name. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what it means. Maybe she'll tell us one of these days what her name means. I know her Twitter account is like Cali Girl something, Cali Navy Girl or Cali Navy Girl 1. Which that that would kind of be good. But that must mean something, right? Non-Fedard, yeah. Why do you have a green screen behind you? Just so people can ask me, why do I have a green screen? No, honestly. I have a green screen behind me because I do green screen. The problem is, see, it's a really nice broadcast actually. It's got like stuff in behind me and all that cool stuff. I do really a green screen broadcast. The problem is, our friends at Live.me, somebody decides that because I don't have gaming content, they just block my broadcast. So it means trust no one in Italian, see? So that's why I have a green screen behind me. No one else can see that. They have no idea that it's a green screen. But you guys get to see my beautiful dollar store green screen. It's like, cost me a grand total of like, those are 50 cents a piece. Oh, it's like $3. So, hey, thanks for following me on Live.me. You're awesome. I appreciate that. But you all are awesome because you're here and we're getting into some word. So yeah, that means trust no one. Listen, I know someone I can trust. I can trust Jesus for sure. So I can trust one at least. I had that when I joined Periscope. I kept it because of my old scopes. So there you go. There you go. There's a reason behind everything. And that's fine. Listen, it shows where you come from and where you're going to, right? And that's what is interesting about this whole platform, is seeing the great stuff that comes out from these broadcasts. You get to see what other people are doing in their lives and things like that. That was before you were delivered. You trust him now. Exactly. So we are going to get into our reading portion of our broadcast. Yes. So today's reading is Psalm 89. And Psalm, you can go back and see every month ago how different you are. Exactly. I don't even know. I have like I got 500 visible ones. I know we've done quite a few broadcasts. And the first original broadcasts were pretty bad for me. I was reading Genesis sitting on my bed with a flashlight, and Psalm 89. Psalm 89. We're gonna get into that. Yeah, you get to see how you're growing, right? Definitely. And but yeah, so that's today's reading, Psalm 89. So let's get into that. All right, guys. I read from. Don't tell everybody. I normally read at my church. We read from the NIV version, right? NIV. That's the choice of translation at my church. The one that I like reading myself is the Amplified version. And but for Periscope, for broadcasts, and for just ease of people listening, we read the New King James Version. It's less words, plus it's got this beautiful webpage called Blue Letter Bible. Blue Letter Bible is a really great resource and allows you to be able to, and listen, they're not paying me to say any of this stuff. I'm telling you, I like it because I can't say some of these words, and it helps me figure out the words, right? So, and I like her broadcast too. She does a really good job. She's coming along very, very well. And holding herself well, that's good. So the tools allow us to be able to get in here and do some stuff, right? So now I can go in and figure out how to say this word, Ezrahite, right? And it tells me in the Greek.
Strong's H,
or in the Hebrew, sorry.
Ezrahi.
See, I was saying it wrong. Ezrahi, right? So it helps you learn how to say the words, right? So, of the Lord is Jehovah.
Strong's H 3068. Yehovah.
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 Yep. So it helps you be able to get deeper into the word, right? And also you can do different Bible versions, so you can see what the translation is in between the different versions. So you can see the NIV, ESV, CSB. You can what it is in Spanish. There's all kinds of different versions here. The YLT. The YLT is like Young's literal translation, so it's more like God the Father or the Son. God the Father. This is Old Testament, so Old Testament would be God the Father. So Yehovah. Alright, so let's get into the reading. Psalm 89. A contemplation of Ethan the Ezrahite. I said it wrong. You know that guy. That's fine. What's going on? Thanks for follow what? Follow what? Follow Bob Ross. Follow a boss. Maybe. I'll follow you back. I don't know. Do you broadcast? You get to what? Star badge, something. I'll follow you. As long as it's not nothing bad that you're doing. There you go. Now you got a new follower. What's up, Lucas? Thanks so much for joining. Alright, so let's get back into this. A contemplation of Ethan the Ezrahite. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. With my mouth I will make known your faithfulness to all generations. For I have said, mercy shall be built up forever. Your faithfulness you shall establish in the very heavens. I have made a covenant with my chosen. I have sworn to my servant David. Your seed I will establish forever, and build up your throne to all generations. Excuse me. Here we go. Built up your throne to all generations. And the heavens will praise your wonders, O Lord. Your faithfulness also in the assembly of the saints. For who in the heavens can be compared to the Lord? Who among the sons of the mighty can be likened to the Lord? God is greatly to be feared in the assembly of the saints, and to be held in reverence by those around him. O Lord God of hosts, who is mighty like you, O Lord? Your faithfulness also surrounds you. You rule the raging of the sea. When its waves rise, you still them. You have broken Rahab in pieces as one who is slain. You have scattered your enemies with your mighty arm. The heavens are yours. The earth also is yours. The world and all its fullness. You have founded them. The Lord, or the north and the south, you have created them. Tabor and Hermon rejoice in your name. You have a mighty arm. Strong is your hand, and high is your right hand. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. Mercy and truth go before your face. Oh, I have a feeling this is a long one. Blessed are the people who know the joyful sound. They walk, O Lord, in the light of your countenance. In your name they rejoice all day long, and in your righteousness they are exalted, for you are the glory of their strength, and in your favor our horn is exalted. For our shield belongs to the Lord, and our King to the Holy One of Israel. Then you spoke in a vision to your Holy One, and said, I have given up to one who is mighty. I have exalted one chosen from the people. I have found my servant David. With my holy oil I have anointed him, with whom my hand shall be established. Also my arm shall be strengthened him. Also my arm shall strengthen him. Yeah. The enemy shall not outwit him, nor the son of wickedness afflict him. I will beat down his foes before his face, and plague those who hate him. But my faithfulness and mercy shall be with him, and in my name his horn shall be exalted. Very interesting words. Also, I will set his hand over the sea, and his right hand over the rivers. He shall cry to me, You are my Father, my God, and the rock of my salvation. I will make him my firstborn, the highest of the kings of the earth. Listen to the words. Listen to those words. My mercy, I will keep him forever, and my covenant shall stand firm with him. His seed also I will make to endure forever, and his throne as days of heaven. If his sons forsake my law, and do not walk in my judgment, if they break my statutes, or do not keep my commandments, then I will punish their transgression with the rod, and their iniquity with stripes. Listen to those words. You hear those words? Listen to those words. Nevertheless, my loving kindness I will not utterly take from him, nor allow my faithfulness to fail. My covenant I will not break, nor alter the word that has gone out of my lips. Once I have sworn by my holiness, I will not lie to David. His seed shall endure forever, and his throne as the sun before me. I shall be established forever like the moon, even like the faithful witness of the sky. But you have cast off and abhorred. You have been furious with your anointed. You have renounced the covenant of your servant. You have profaned his crown by casting it to the ground. You have broken down all his hedges. You have brought his strongholds to ruin. All who pass by the way plunder him. He is a reproach to his neighbors. You have exalted the right hand of his adversaries. You have exalted the right hand of his adversaries, yeah. You have made all his enemies rejoice. You have also turned back the edge of his sword. You have not sustained him in the battle. You have made his glory cease, and cast his throne down to the ground. The days of his youth you have shortened. You have covered him you have covered him with shame. How long, Lord? Will you hide yourself forever? Will your wrath burn like fire? Remember how short my time is. For what futility have you created all of the children of men? What man can live and not see death? Can he deliver his life from the power of the grave? Very interesting. Lord, it was a really long one. Lord, where are your former loving kindnesses, which you swore to David in your truth? Remember, Lord, the reproach of your servants, how I bear in my bosom the reproach of all the many peoples, with which your enemies have rejoiced. With which your enemies have reproached. O Lord, with which they have reproached the footsteps of your anointed. Blessed be the Lord forevermore. Amen and amen. Whew, that was a long one. Yeah, hashtag love will definitely give you that. What's up, Jameson? Thanks for joining the broadcast. Who else we got going on here? Blessings, Ramondo. I'm a man of excellence. Okay. I don't even know how to say it. I reached 50 viewers. Thanks so much for joining. And sharing out, doing what you guys do. All those little heart thingies and all that stuff's cool. Thank you. Yeah, that is, that's it. Jameson's blessings. Sorry, I got this little thing in the way there. Winter time, we have snowmen. Yeah. I forget what that, there's like different hashtags. You can do different things. Alright, so that is yeah, if you do hashtag, or if you do like search, you'll see it, hashtag something. Welcome back, Lisa. Alright, so that we've read our Bible psalm. That was a long passage, and so I'm going to give you a little view. This is out of my backyard back here, well, except for the part that's not on the green screen. There we go. That's my backyard. Somewhere there. Back over there. All the way. Yeah. It's a picture from down the road, actually. Yeah, that's a good picture. That was a good one. Yep. So let's read today. It's a good picture. I like it. So we read every day that we broadcast. We read from the Our Daily Bread. I'm an Our Daily Bread ambassador, which means me too. Our Daily Bread ambassador. So I've asked them if it's okay if I read this on the broadcast, and they said absolutely, continue to do that. And in fact, do you want more copies? So I'm an ambassador. I get copies of this. So definitely, if you want to get your own copy, you can go to odb.org. Get your own copy. You check and see. It might be at your church first. Check and see. They might have it there, back somewhere in your welcome center. If not, definitely check out the website, and you get different ways of it delivered to you through messenger, text message. There's an app. There's the web page itself. You can get it pretty much any way you want. If you're in the Buffalo area and you'd like a copy, I'll meet up with you, and we can have coffee, and I'll give you a free copy if you're in the Buffalo area and you cannot find it. So let's read from it today. Today's title is Who Are We? or no, who we are. Who we are is the question, right? This is for Wednesday, July 31st. This is the end of July. It's the last day. Actually, in about a minute, it's going to be August here on the East Coast. Yeah. All right, let's get into this. Who we are. This is written by Peter Chin. I'll never forget the time I took my future wife to meet my family. With a twinkle in their eyes, my 2 elder siblings asked her, "What exactly do you see in this guy?" She smiled and assured them that by God's grace, I had grown to be the man she loved. I love that clever reply because it also reflects how, in Christ, the Lord sees more than our past. In Acts 9, he directed Ananias to heal Saul, a known persecutor of the church, whom God had blinded. Ananias was, incredulous at receiving. He was incredulous, yes, at receiving this mission. I don't know what that word means. We'll have to figure that one out. We'll figure it out. Incredulous at receiving this mission, stating that Saul had been rounding up believers in Jesus for persecution and even execution. God told Ananias not to focus on what Saul had been, but on who he had become. An evangelist who would bring the good news to all the known world, including to the Gentiles. Getting the end of my cup. Including the Gentiles. So, and those are people who aren't Jews, right? Who weren't Jews. And to the kings, right? Ananias saw Saul, the Pharisee, and the persecutor. But God saw Paul, the apostle, and the evangelist. We can sometimes view ourselves only as we have been, with all of our failures and shortcomings. This is speaking to somebody right now. I know it is. Speaking to somebody right now. I'm going to repeat that. We can sometimes view ourselves only as we have been, with all of our failures and shortcomings. But God sees us as a new creation. Right? He sees us as new creations. Not who we were, but who we are in Jesus, and who we are becoming through the power of the Holy Spirit. Oh God, teach us to view ourselves and others in this way. I think if more people did that, if more people did that, I think we all would be in a amazing place right there, right? We'd be sitting in that going, listen, I don't care about the past. I don't care about what happened. I don't care about what you did. I don't care what I did. I don't care that we're moving forward. Let's move forward. What is it? What I am in Jesus Christ. What I am going to be doing. What I've done already. Right? No, that was very beautiful. Very well written, Mr. Chin. So here's a question. You ready? How can you begin to better view yourself and others in the light of who you are in Christ today? How does it encourage you to know God isn't through growing and refining you? Every day we just talked about that, right? Right, Tina? We just talked about that. So our prayer for today, I guess maybe it's a prayer. Yes, it is a prayer. Heavenly Father, help me to find my full identity in you. Allow me to humbly see others through your eyes of grace. Amen. Amen. It's about what we are. It's not about what we are doing right now, and now we're trying to improve daily. Exactly. Move forward day by day, pointing your eyes, focusing on Jesus, speaking His name, spreading His word. So today's reading was from Acts chapter 9, verses 13 through 16. The key verse is Acts 9, verse 15. This man is my chosen instrument to proclaim my name. Boom. And that's that. Awesome. What do we got going on over here on Periscope? Whoa, that is crazy amount of people on Periscope. 821 viewers. Wow, that's crazy. Thank you to those people who share out and allow other people to come in here. Talk to talk and walk to walk. I agree with that statement. That's it. We got to definitely do that. I'm still waiting for that guy over there on live.me to ask, or not live.me, YouNow, to ask me a question. He's like, can I ask you a question? It's like, sure, go ahead. And then he didn't ask. So I don't understand that you can explain that. So I don't understand that. Can you explain it for me, please? It's all about what we're doing. So why did it tell me that I had 33 last night, but I had over 1,000? Oh, in the corner it tells you yeah, I get it. In the corner, that's the number of live viewers. That's the number of people who are watching you live. So at points in times during my broadcast, it'll have like anywhere from, like right now there's 11 viewing live, and then the 1,300 is like the total. So like you have 33 live viewers. I mean, it's 33 people were actively watching you, right, when you looked at your screen. But when you checked your viewers, that's the total number of viewers. So the broadcast ESL, yeah. So you had 1,300 total people, total different people come into your broadcast, right? And but that down the corner is your, yeah, that is outstanding. That is good. That is good. I was in her broadcast, so anytime that Seeker Truth guy comes in and shares out on Periscopes, they immediately go up, you know. They immediately go up. There's like, yeah, so you had 33 people watching you currently, right? And then yeah, 1,300 people, 1,500 people, whatever it may be. Not a problem. Listen, I had to do lots of research with all of these apps because I broadcast on a whole bunch of different apps. I broadcast on YouTube, YouNow, Live.me, DLive.io, Periscope, Facebook, Twitch, Smashcast, FC2, Peaks, Instajib, Vaughn Live, Africa TV, OK.ru. So we're reaching lots of different people. Sorry, I had to end abruptly at the end there. There was 50. Yeah, I'm be honest with you. I shut it down. I went to sleep. I don't know what time it was. It was getting late for me, but yeah. But no, I enjoy listening to people share their testimonies and helping to explain the Bible, or at least read it. You know, sometimes it's not even just explaining it; it's just a matter of listening to it. Maybe we have some people who are nonverbal, right, or can't read, that are in these broadcasts, and for us to read the Bible for them, right? This might be the only opportunity that they have to listen to the Word of God, right? You broke down and couldn't stop crying about your son. Yeah, I know, it's tough. It is definitely tough in situation. I know. I know your situation there. Alright, so we've got some prayer requests. That prayer request is really big for some reason for me tonight. I don't know why. It's like blocking part of the comments. So let's make that a little bit smaller. And then let's fix this thing because it looks a little awkward. It looks very awkward. Very, very, very awkward. There we go. That'll look a little better. Once I bring it in. Here we go. How about... Does that look a little better? That looks a little better. Now let's take the me right here and let's put me... Let's fade that thing in a little bit. There we go. We'll put me up a little bit. That way here it fits in better on the screen. Yeah, so let's pray for you. It's just part of being healed and gaining patience. Listen, if you gotta be able to cry it out. You gotta be able to get that out. Definitely, you know. And it's tough. It's tough. Learning to pray as much as you can think of. Listen, if you're thinking, pray. That's pretty much what it is. All the time. Talk to him. Talk to him. Let him know. I'll move the screen here so I can actually read the comments. So guys, if you have any prayer requests, praise reports, if you don't mind, I'd like to pray for you. Come so far, yeah. Come very far, and so it's good to, you know, you gotta, sometimes healing is just getting rid of, you know, that. And let's make these comments a little bigger. Let's actually move some of this stuff around. There we go. Alright, clicker. Come on, clicker. There we go. Too many clicks. There we go. All of you appreciate it. Thank you for the guidance. Not a problem. So from what I understand, you're waiting to hear about conditions around your son, is there, right? It was last night. Last night I didn't shake. I wasn't nervous. So nervous. The more you do it, the more it's gonna become there. Hey, what's going on? Follow you, bro. Jorge Nash. I'm gonna follow you. Oh, you didn't follow me though. Or are you following me? I'm not sure. Some interesting usernames. Some of them you have to like, I want to greet people, but I'm like, ooh, probably don't want to greet a person with that name. What's going on? Dacuroto. Hopefully I just didn't say a bad name. What's going on? Anthony Ranger sent a chef's hat, and I got a diamond. Dude, you're awesome. Thanks so much. Is in the fan. You made a fan of the broadcast. There it is. Thanks so much, Anthony Ranger. Thanks for joining. You got your follow back, man. Thanks for joining. So yeah, guys, if you have any prayer requests or praise reports, please put that into there. You have to serve as dad with the docs to go to court and to restate your visitation. Court coming at the beginning of August, but you cannot locate him. Do you like pickles and burgers? I want to say in the burger, not like in the burger. I like pickles on the burger sometimes. I mean, depends on the burger. Some burgers you don't want pickles and stuff like that. You know, you want a true burger. You want like the steak burger. The steak. I gotta find a picture of that. I should probably share that with you guys. The burger. The burger we make is done on the broiler, and what it is it's ground beef and it's chopped up steak, little pieces of steak. And he needs his mom to, yeah, exactly. You like to dip the pickles in milk. That's really interesting. I got this odd feeling that comments are going to start going in the wrong direction. Just kind of odd feeling, maybe. I hope not. I hope you're genuine and true, and I'm not going to put foul language in my broadcast, but hey. Pickles and milk, I don't know. I mean, wouldn't that take away from the you like Jesus? That's good. I like him too. He's like my that sounds horrible. The pickles, I think the pickles would I pray that we keep focused on you, Lord. Exactly. Well, we can talk too, right? We can chat. We can have a little bit of goofiness too. Why not? Lord Heavenly Father, I lift up our sister Tina tonight, Lord. Lord, we just ask for favor. Lord, we ask for direction and guidance. Lord, allow her to be able to find that father of her son. Lord, and allow her to be able to just deliver the proper documents that she needs to have. Lord, make a way. See that there is no restrictions. There's no struggles. That the whole visitation thing gets worked out, where she's able to see her son. Because Lord, we know that a child needs their mother. Lord, just make a way. In Jesus' mighty and powerful name we pray. Amen. Jesus is an OG. Jesus rocks. Yes, he does. Jesus rocks. Yeah. Amen. Amen. Messenger, thanks for joining the broadcast. Don't thank me. Let's thank Jesus. Let's make it a way. Let's all come in agreement. Remember, guys, keep her in your prayers for that, especially in the beginning of the month when she's trying to. Pastor Rick, thanks so much for all the super hearts and stuff. You're awesome. Guys, thanks for all the shares. I don't know if anybody's sharing or tweeting. Guys, we got to get the word out. So make sure you share. Make sure you tweet. Make sure that you retweet. Click that little 3 dots up in there and press the tweet. Oh, thanks for obedience. Okay. I listen to what he says. And he says go broadcast. So I broadcast. So that's what we do. We go and broadcast. Yeah. God bless you abundantly. Yeah, let's keep her in prayer. For sure. Pastor Rick, God bless you, Pastor Rick. Yeah, we as people who are believers in God all need to can't see anyone's comments, not sure why. Yeah, there's some people have been complaining about that. Should have overthrown Tiberius and become the emperor of Rome. I knew it was gonna go somewhere. He orders me when I say I don't want it. Exactly. I'm tired as all get out, but I'm sitting here contemplating and going on broadcast, and it's just like go. Someone needs prayer. Go. Greg R. Harvey is in my broadcast. This is thanks for the share out, my brother. This is an epic moment because Greg R. Harvey does not go on Periscope at night, so there must be something going on. See the well, this is what it is, right there, Greg. This image, 800 by 600. Except my green screen's a little off. What is that? Why be Emperor of Rome instead of the King of the Universe? Exactly. Who cares about this world? He's got the whole thing already. We should have another crusade and retake the Holy Land. Forgot. Some very interesting comments. It will be delivered to the people of God, and it already has been. You know, those the chosen Israel, those Israel people. Yeah. See, told you. But my CPU is running a mile a minute right now. You can hear it. You probably can hear it. It's going. Yeah, let's not do another crusade. It's not what it's about. People got a little screwed up in the head trying to push that thing, you know. It's kind of like Jesus is coming, and then we don't have to worry about this. It's not up to us. It's not up to us to make the Christians. It's up to us to lead people to Christ. It's not, you know, if you look at it, there's a bit of a crusade going on now with a lot of the Islam sects of people, right? The sections of people. See Mac Love, yeah. Jesus returned in the clouds on a white horse, and we'll see some fireworks. Oh yeah. Yep. You want to see something really good, wait till that day. I hope you're on the good side, because we're gonna go flying that day. Hope you sit down and buckle up. We're going for a ride. I should force every Muslim to be Christian. I'm not going to force every Muslim to be a Christian. It's not my position. But any Muslim that decides to ask me a question about Christ and about what the truth is written in the Bible, then we'll lead him, right? We'll lead him to occupy until he comes. That's right. That's what we're here. We occupy till he comes. We shall wait, and he will come down, the same as he went up, on a cloud. So, we'll take that. It's not about fighting. Because, doesn't matter what it says, right? What anybody says. Love can't be forced, right? Or it's not genuine. There's truth in those words. We don't force. We lead. We plant the seeds. Boom. Faith Girl. I don't know if I'm following you. Hold on. New to my broadcast? You're on Twitter. I'll have to come back and follow you afterwards. Forcing someone is faulty faith. Yep. Yeah, I can't force you. I can't force anybody to believe something. Islam is a lying gosh or killer. Nah. Let's try to lead people. It's not up for us to make the decision either. It may be a lie, that's for sure. I'll agree with that statement. It is not truth. But do I feel that every Muslim should die? Absolutely not. What I feel is that we need to love people, show them what Christ looks like, and lead them to the cross. A converted Muslim is going to be, one of the greatest. I'm here because I saw Greg share, but blessed to be here. Thanks so much. What's going on, Warren? Thanks for joining. I broadcast on a bunch of different platforms, so if you hear me talking, you guys can see in the chat, right? Because I use Restream for most of them. Alright, we're broadcasting tonight on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different platforms. Yeah. I don't know about them awesome, but, There's a word forced. Love. Yeah, that's right. God don't do that. Exactly. He said, Jesus was asked, what is the greatest commandment, right? I should kill Obama because I don't know about that. He's pretty much really like this song. I'm not a slave to fear. I'm a child of God. Well, you know what? I got that song. I do. I'm a child of God. That's the name of the song again, right? Is that the... We get lost sometimes in the song. And I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Right? That's the one. I'm gonna go dig it out. We're gonna go dig it out. Slave to fear. Yeah. Right? That's the name of the song. Isn't that song Who You Say I Am, right? Isn't that the name of the song? Do you have time for any questions? I mean, it is 12:25 on the Eastern Seaboard, so... Let me go look it up real quick. I am a child of God. Lyrics. No longer a slave. Oh yeah, Who You Say I Am. That's the name of the song. Who You Say I Am. I just did that one not that long ago, I'm pretty sure. We're going to do a Control F. And we're going to say I am. Who? Yeah, it's who you say I am. Who you. How about you? Who you say I am. There we go. That's the one. Don't go too far. Don't go too fast. Because what? You're into killing a lot of people. It seems to be maybe that's your game. I don't know. Alright, hold on guys. Here's your song.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free, who is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am.
Free at last he has ransomed me, his grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, who is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am.
Are you chosen, not forsaken? I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am.
child of God. Yes, I am.
In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am.
I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am.
Yes, I
I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. And I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
No, my sound's off. My sound's on. Yes. No, the sound's been on because there's been people that have asked about the sound. So, I mean, unless you didn't hear live the message right there, the song. Oh. See, I blocked you from the stream chat so no one can see it. That stuff, because now you're starting to get a little weird. But yeah, if there's something's up with your app, dude, that's what happens sometimes with OBS and the app. Sometimes they get a little out of sync. I've asked them about it, and they don't seem to have a fix for it. So that's why. But you should be able to hear me if you go out and come back in. We do come in with a new. Okay. We're going to just block you for now. Sorry, dude. Just can't deal with praying for the angry dude. Yeah, let's pray for him for sure. Because he definitely needs some help. For sure. Streaming for an hour and 27 minutes with no sound. So, who was that? I can't see that in that chat. How did he get the aw man in there? Oh, he snuck in. Oh, look at that. Alright. You get banned. Bye-bye. It's a difference when you're gonna be nasty. Sorry guys, I'm just taking care of some business over here. The guy's definitely angry. Definitely needs to take a little chill pill. I'll unblock him after. But yeah, no. Can't go sitting there talking about one hand, God is good, Jesus is good, and then all of a sudden you want to kill certain particular people because it's not right. The Almighty God does not steal, kill, and destroy. Exactly. Might be following the wrong God. Just saying. No Longer Slaves. That is a song. And No Longer Slaves. That is the song. So we're not a slave to this. Control F. No longer. I don't know if I necessarily want this one where it was me. I'd rather not do that one where it was just me. I'd rather do it where it's me and someone else. I know I did it. Maybe I did it. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Lord Heavenly Father, we lift up whoever that person is that goes by Dark U Rodo 17. Lord, we ask that you we just ask for his eyes to be opened, his heart to be softened, and his mind to be clear, so he can properly understand your love is all we need to conquer this world. Your love is all we need to show others that we are your follower. So Lord, we thank you so much for your grace, your mercy, your love. Thank you most importantly for your Son who came here on this earth to show us what a perfect human being was supposed to look like. Lord, we just thank you for what he done on the cross, the work that was completed and done, taking away our sin. And all we have to do is accept that gift and believe. Thank you, Lord. Yeah. Repair the wounded, bitter heart. Exactly. In Jesus' mighty and powerful name, we pray. Amen. We are no longer slaves. Looks like you're gonna get just that one. Okay. Let's do it. No longer slaves. There it is. Someone requested it. You get it. You got it. There it is. Come and join me.
You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Your love has called my name. I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Oh, 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 you split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. Yes, I am. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. Full of faith, I am a child of God. Praise the Lord.
All right. So someone had accidentally muted Tina, so I fixed it. So be careful when you're muting people or accidentally muting people. I know it's late, so maybe it was done on accident. Those who are my moderators. So, guys, it is late. I am tired. I know that you guys are tired. Let's get some sleep. Let's get some rest. And let's do this again soon. So guys, if you need, I gotta do this a little bit of stuff here. If you need any help with getting your church or your business or your personal live streaming efforts up and running, do you need coaching? I can help you. We can talk. Let's send me an email and we can get discussing some stuff. See where you're at, talk about budgets and what you have and what you don't have and what we need to help you get to the point where you're broadcasting or your church is broadcasting for sure. So definitely make sure that Jesus did it. We haven't decided on what we're doing for the broadcast for the next month, because now it'll be next month, so it'll be good. So definitely that. So yeah. So we're not sure what we're doing yet. This is for Peaks. Guys, if you wish to support the ministry in any way, Peaks, make sure you use the in-app method, please. Make sure you use in-app method for Peaks only for supporting the broadcast. Peaks. Make sure you do that. I have to say that. J.R. Wallace, you always come in the end of my broadcast, man. I'm so sorry. So sorry. So let's pray. Let's get on out of here. I'll play a song on the way out. And guys, thanks so much for joining and supporting all the hearts, the super hearts, invites, follows, shares, likes, thumbs ups, all those smiley faces, happy faces, things like that. Guys, thanks so much for supporting this broadcast and all the rest of the Jesus Did It broadcasters. Very appreciative of that. Alright, so it's bedtime. Let's get some sleep. Let's pray. Lord Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this broadcast. Lord, we thank you for the people that came into this broadcast. Lord, we just thank you for their obedience to listen to your word, to fill their ears and put their eyes on something other than what is in this world. But Lord, we just thank you for your word and being able to use it. Being able to use it to spread your truth, your gospel, your story, your love. Lord, we just thank you for the opportunity to be able to share with those who may not know who you are, Lord, and we just ask for continued guidance in that direction, Lord. We ask that all of our hearts be softened, all of our eyes be open, and our ears be open as well. Lord, we just ask for continued favor for that. In Jesus' mighty and powerful name, we pray. Amen. Alright, God bless you too, man. And guys, so thanks for joining. Let's do a song on the way out. I say we do a J.R. Wallace song, because J.R. Wallace is here in the broadcast over on Facebook. So J.R. Wallace song with a Jason Wallace song. Let's see what we got. J.R. Wallace. That was a group song, Lord, I Need You. Let's do... Is that Revelations? No. We've done a lot of songs. We gotta do some more songs with you. It's been about a minute. Why is it the ones with you in Christ alone? That's a group song. Yeah, when it says just your name, it's a group song. Wow, it's been some time that we've actually sung a song together. Here we go. Life song. Let's do that one on the way out. Wallace and Wallace. That's right. sounds like attorneys or something. Boom, we get it done. Oh, that's funny. Alright, guys. I love you all. Get some rest. Be blessed. Know that Jesus Christ loves you. And that's all you really need to know. Alright, guys. We'll see you the next broadcast. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see. I love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Empty hands held high, such most sacrifice, if not joined with my life, I sing in vain tonight.
May the words I say and the things I do make my life song sing, bring a smile to you.
Let my life song sing to you. Let my life song sing to you. I wanna sign your name to the end of this day, knowing my heart was true. Let my life song sing to you. Lord, I give my life a living sacrifice to reach a world in need, to be your hands and feet.
So may the words I say and the things I do make my life song sing, bring a smile to you.
Let my life song sing to you. Let my life song sing to you. I wanna sign your name to the end of this day, knowing my heart was true. Let my life song sing to you. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Let my life song sing to you.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Let my life song sing to you.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Let my life song sing to you. Let my life song sing to you. Let my life song sing to you.
I wanna sign your name to the end of this day, knowing that heart was true. Let my life song sing.
Let my life song sing to you. Let my life song sing to you. I wanna sign your name to the end of this day, knowing my heart was true. Let my life song sing to you. Thanks for joining.
No problem.
God bless you.